Welcome again to the Jerry Reynolds Show here at the beautiful McCreery Studios, the home of McCreery's Home Furnishings, where you can get the very best furniture at a great price. But hey, you already knew that. I tell you that every time, so you probably paid attention. And my guest today is kind of interesting for me. It's the gentleman that is responsible primarily for this show, Kris McCreery, and great to have you on board.
Well, thank you so much, Jerry. You know, I have no business being up here sharing the set with you after all the great guests that you've had on the show. Just so the audience knows, this is Jerry's idea.
It is my idea. It is my idea, and see, what I believe is that there's everybody is very interesting, and Kris certainly is not a sports fan, doesn't have a background in sports, and quite honestly, I don't see a problem with that. It just so happens I had wasted a good bit of my life. That's all I've been concerned about.
Here come the angry comments now, the angry tweets, Jerry.
as Mrs. Reynolds will tell you, maybe it's a wasted, but it's we all have our ways to go. And with Kris, I really want to start, quite honestly. Sure. I know that you didn't, as a little boy, probably dedicate yourself to furniture at that time. That might not have, like most little boys, you probably had a lot of different ways to go. But even before that, I'd like to get a kind of a brief history, if you would.
Sure.
Not just you, but the family and McCreery's Furniture.
Sure. Yeah. So my grandparents started the company back in 1955, and as the story would go, my grandparents, MD in Florence, they loaded up their, I think it was a Packard or some car of the era, and they lived in Pennsylvania. And they threw everything they could into that car and drove all the way across country here to California to buy this property. And there was a furniture store here at the time, and they were building Highway 80. They were building Cap City Freeway at the time, and the store owner was convinced that that freeway was going to put them out of business.
I see. Now, let me ask you this. Now, with your grandparents, had they had a background in furniture showcases in any way?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
So really, they just came upon the idea of, we can get this property.
Yeah.
And we can make a go of it there. Is that pretty much? Now, that's gutsy stuff.
That's
right
the
there.
idea. Yeah. You know, my family, they had a farm in Pennsylvania, and they all, worked on the family farm and saved up money. And I think they probably sold everything they had to put capital into the start of the business. And yeah, it really just was kind of a wing and a prayer.
It really is amazing what chances people took, probably less so today than they used to in a lot of ways. I've always made the joke about my ancestors, originally, besides coming from Wales and Scotland on my mother and father's side, but my father's ancestors were miners in West Virginia. And, like a lot of people wanted to migrate west, and I think basically they just started migrating. They got far as Indiana and said, to hell with it, that's far enough.
That's far enough.
So we don't
no more.
It's better than West Virginia, so we'll just, that's good enough.
So,
but I mean, I think it says something that they, just on that alone, I mean, that was a courageous move. And so, so then they were able to get the property and to start.
They bought the business. It opened up officially under their ownership in 1955. I believe it was November of 1955, and it was known as Modern Furniture. And the building's had several additions since then. In the beginning, it was just the part where, as you walk in the door and you walk straight up to the step. So if you walk past that step, you were in the exterior of the building.
Exterior, okay.
And then they had living quarters upstairs, which is now the break room, and one of those places is my office. But they lived up there for, I think, 5-6 years. And my father even lived with them for a short time up there as well. And so they saved up, and they bought a house nearby, and that was kind of the way it went.
And so then, after obviously your grandparents started the building, built the business, and everything. And now, had your father, had he worked in the business all along as well?
So he was he did his time in the military, and he came back. He spent some time, I think it was Anahuac or one of those islands out in the, I think that's Pacific. And then so, he came back and they offered him a position to start with sales. And so he came and he did sales. I imagine he even did warehouse for a while. But, he really, worked his way up from janitorial to warehouse to sales to management. He really worked really hard, and he was sort of the first to conceptualize the gallery concept. We were the first Thomasville gallery in the world. We were Thomasville's pilot program for their gallery.
No, that is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing too that always amazed me. A person like say your father that basically had experience in all phases of the business.
Right.
I mean, what better way to know the business than to work,
Sure.
in maintenance, warehouse, sales, the whole bit.
Yeah. You really, I think you grew an appreciation, an understanding of, what it takes to run that business from the warehouse to the sales floor to management. I think it just makes you a more well-rounded owner, I
always remember, I mean, it's a little bit off topic, but a guy named Larry Miller that used to own the Utah Jazz.
Right.
Well, he got his start, and I remember I'd always have interesting conversation with him. Always admired him so much, became a billionaire. But he started off working in the parts shop of a car dealer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just in other words, just basically bringing parts,
Sure.
this, that, and the other,
Sure.
and then started really, he ran a parts department for a number of years, and then finally bought a dealership. And I always remember him telling me, he said, he thought that was the real reason for his success in the business was he saw the business from that angle,
right?
And basically built it around, basically making his customers happy with service and different things, as opposed to, he said, most dealers are former salesmen,
right?
That they just see it from the sales perspective as opposed to the service, and so, and I think most businesses, if you look back on them, there's reasons why some do well,
sure,
and maybe some don't.
Yeah. No, that does offer a very unique perspective, and I think that life's a game of perspectives.
Mm-hmm. When you were growing up, now what was your relationship? Obviously, I know you had a relationship with your father and mother, but with the business, was it anything that you thought about that this might be my career going forward?
Honestly, not really. When I was young, of course, when I was old enough to screw in a light bulb, I was on the ladder putting in light bulbs up on the showroom floor. When I was old enough to move furniture, I was moving stuff around in the warehouse. And, I love the aspect of business, but just furniture didn't really resonate with me at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I took a number of opportunities to explore different parts of business. And when I was in college, I met a couple friends in our economics class, and one of my buddies, we had a lot in common, which was computers. Mm-hmm. We're both, very computer savvy, and we're like, hey, we're 19, 20 years old. Let's start a web development company, And so we did this in 2006, and we honestly we probably sold way too much more than we could handle. It was a very quick learning experience of how to sell, how to follow through, and how to meet your customers' expectations. Mm-hmm. And
so it's just you two guys that developed this company?
Yeah, it was the two of us, and I think within the first month or two, we had over 6 clients, and even an e-commerce client, which back in 2006 was kind of a big deal. So we had to kind of learn on the fly, kind of fake it till we make it, kind of thing.
Sure.
And it was great learning experience. And so after that, it was we wrapped up those projects, and it was time to for me to finish college. I had.
Now, where'd you go to college?
So I have not finished my 4-year degree. I spent way too much time at Sierra College. I spent a lot of time at Sierra. I racked up 3 associate's degrees. I wanted to do pre-law. And I've never been good at math. So any degree that I could focus in that wasn't focused on mathematics was the way I'd go. Right. So first started with liberal arts, and then I'm like, oh, well, liberal arts is kind of a dead end. So maybe I should, and no offense to liberal arts majors out there, I'm sure that you're doing great with that. Yeah. But communications major was then, the choice. And so I started working towards my communications degree. And then around the time that I was getting ready to transfer to Sac State, my dad said, hey, there's a number of things going on, with technology. You have this unique skill set. Why don't you come in and work with our marketing manager and, provide some insight, maybe shadow him and learn a little bit. So I said, I think that's a good idea. That sounds like fun. So I came in and started working with the marketing manager. And about 3 months into it, he just up and said, you know what? I think now's a good time for me to retire. And
So don't you think he was probably thinking that when he talked you into coming back in on that side, it maybe is in the back of his mind, you suppose, to get you back and
Perhaps, yeah. It's I haven't actually thought of that. I think the marketing manager definitely saw an out, because he was near retirement. And he had other ventures that he wanted to pursue. So, yeah, and so this happened. The marketing manager was like, "Hey, I think this is my opportunity." Within 2 weeks, he was gone, and I remember going to my dad, and I'm just like, Dad, this is a lot of responsibility. I have some marketing experience. I'm a quick learner, but this is a lot. Should we find an agency to assist? And my dad, whether it be, just his blind trust in me or him not wanting to pay for an agency, said, you know what, Kris, we'll figure it out.
Well, I mean, you think about it, it's like, well, I mean, you could always hire an agency
Right.
if it didn't work out. So I
Sure,
don't know that how big a risk. I mean, it was a risk.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think if he, to actually show confidence, that was a great opportunity for him to show confidence in you, and a great opportunity for you to, get off the pot and get it done.
Exactly. So I had to learn very quick who to listen to, who not to listen to. Everyone giving you advice has a vested interest in the advice that they're giving you for the most part.
Sure.
So I quickly made some really good friends and allies that walked me through this process of, learning how to buy media and how all this stuff works. And it's just kind of been a nonstop adventure since then.
And now, basically, your duties at that time was strictly marketing, right?
Correct.
So, what direction did you go? I mean, was it? Of course, I'm always think in terms of being an old person, think in terms of newspapers and things of that nature. But that probably doesn't apply too much anymore, does it?
Yeah, the bee was a big part of our marketing mix at the time, and we would do Sacramento bee ads, and they would perform. But as viewership continued to diminish, it was time to check out other vehicles. And I had done video editing and video production in high school, and just messing around on my own, just a hobbyist. And so when I started getting bids, I thought, we definitely need to be on TV. This is the right place for McCreery's to be, because it's a very visual product, and it's a great way to tell a story. So as I started talking to other video producers, I started getting bids, and I started thinking, I'm like, wow, could I figure this out? Could I figure this out on a professional level? And I chose to go that direction. I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to do my own video production and not have to put that, hire a video producer at that point. So I just kind of undertook learning on my own, a lot of YouTube and other tutorials, and got into, some other, video applications like After Effects.
It is amazing to me, like say with today with YouTube and Spotify and iTunes and just
Sure.
Google. I mean, it just seems like anything's at your fingertips almost, isn't it?
It is. There's tremendous amount of opportunity for those that, are looking for it to be self-taught.
Yeah, I mean, it for I think my generation, I mean, it's a little scary, I mean, with all the different Instagrams and Twitters and all that stuff. It's it's really more connected than I want to be.
Sure.
But I mean, I do see, I mean, I spend more time, on my iPad than I do watching TV.
Yeah.
Where I can just sit and, go to YouTube and, I even watch the Jerry Reynolds Show.
Yeah, I was going to say,
myself.
check out the Jerry Reynolds Show on YouTube.
Some of it I like, some of it, But but let me ask you this, of course, you're the primary reason we have a Jerry Reynolds Show. Now, what was your, thinking there, that how this would work, or why me, or any things along that nature?
Yeah, so one of my really good friends that I met, it's probably been over 10 years ago, Howard Bird. He was our TV rep, and he, I would buy media through him and buy airtime.
Yeah, I know. I worked for him a bit, with, he got me, I did some yellow cab commercials.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
different insurance things and
you've been in a few of his movies too.
and a couple of movies. And so
Yeah.
so anyway, that would be our connection, I think.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And for the audience, if you haven't checked out Howard's story, you need to go watch that
A
episode.
very interesting man.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
yeah.
I when he
we've
told
got
me,
him on, on the show and
episode 2.
yeah, played for the Harlem Globetrotters for
Amazing
or
story.
against the Harlem Globetrotters. Amazing story.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. So Howard, I had known Howard. I have done video production for the last give or take 10 years with outside clients, and Howard and we would occasionally meet up for coffee in between his movies and just catch up. And we were just talking one day, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on with McCreery's?" And McCreery, should think about doing an endorsement. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do an endorsement." And your name came up, and I'm like, "Oh, absolutely! Everyone knows you. I'm not the biggest sports fan. I do follow the Kings more or less, more back in the 2003
sure.
season.
When they were good, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're kind of a front runner. Is what you're telling me?
I'm one of those fair-weathered fans,
I
yeah.
am too when it comes to football, so it all works out.
Honestly, it comes down to time, and it's tough for me to, with the family and everything, to have time to watch sports. So I think it's kind of a time thing. But yeah, so Howard and I were just talking, and your name came up, and I'm like, yeah, let's do an endorsement with Jerry. Everyone knows you, everyone loves you. They can't think of the Kings and not think of you and Grant. And so I thought it was a great idea. And then Howard came back and said, I talked to Jerry, and I mentioned a podcast, and Jerry seemed interested. And I said, hey, that's amazing. That's amazing. In fact, I think Howard first said, maybe we can buy some radio time. Mm-hmm. I said, I think we need to think podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say that was interesting because I always remember the early conversation, and that's kind of what I thought. Well, I'll do a little part-time radio or something.
Sure.
Maybe I can handle that a little bit.
Right.
And then I think after he had talked to you, talking about the podcast, which I'd certainly watched some podcasts, but I didn't really understand. And my feelings at that time, well, if I'm going to be a podcast with McCreery's, I assumed I'd be sit here in a lazy boy.
Right.
And shoot the bull with somebody for a few minutes. I didn't really anticipate, the commitment that you guys have made.
Yeah, I saw your history. I know of your history with the franchise, and you've been here since the team has got here, and I love telling stories. That's one of the things that I loved. Being a video producer was doing mini docs and telling business owners stories about their companies. And when your name came up, I just realized that you have a million stories to tell. And I just would love to have that opportunity.
And some of them are interesting.
All of them are interesting. All of them are just amazing. And the ability to capture these, for now and into infinity, these are no longer stories that are within, like the circles of the few and the your friends. Now the audience knows these stories, and they can be shared and cherished.
It is interesting, how it's worked out for me, at least, just with some of the people we've talked with, obviously people I know for the most part very well. And I noticed in each one of the shows that there's something I'll get into that I've never really said before,
Sure.
A little different story or a little different take on things.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what kind of life is, I guess, you
Yeah.
know. And the thing I was going to say too, the thing that impressed me though about you right away is before we even got started, we were talking about it, and we sat down and started visiting, and I found out you'd gotten a book that I'd several years ago. I think Don Drysdale and myself put together. Reynolds Remembers, a book that really was a bestseller, surprisingly, on a national basis for a long time, for several years. And you got it and read it and kind of had a background on me that, almost scared me a little bit.
Oh, geez. Well, yeah, the first time we met, you mentioned that you wrote a book, and so, I made a mental bookmark, and after that meeting, I went to Amazon and I bought that book, and turns out I probably didn't have to go to Amazon because it was right down the street was the book that actually was mailed here, which is kind of funny. It was down
Really?
at Deseret Industries, because I
Yeah.
guess your book's no longer in circulation or
Right.
no longer being printed.
Other than Amazon, and they've got another company took over I don't know how they got the rights to it, but then they put a different cover on it. And
Yeah,
Tales from the Sacramento Kings, exact same
Are you
book.
getting royalties for that?
No,
Who do we need to talk to?
I don't
Jerry?
know. I don't think.
Let's audience, please tell Jerry that he needs to write another book. We need another book.
The original publishers have contacted me, you know, and I might do it, you know, when I totally retire.
Right.
Then I always say it'll be Reynolds Remembers Everything,
Right.
as opposed to, which I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, it was fun. It was fun to do, and
It was great. There were great stories. I learned about you and just very detailed things. It was awesome. It was a very good book.
I thought, you know, what I want to do is just show how much fun there can be. You know, certainly with the bad teams, good teams.
Right.
You know, it doesn't change. Behind the scenes,
Yeah.
you really have some really delightful people to be around, and then
Sure.
there's some difficult people.
Right. There's always difficult
There's always
people
some
in
of
that, right?
those, and sometimes it may not even be who you think it is.
Yeah.
But you know, so it's just kind of a look through the background of an NBA team.
Yeah. No, it was a great book.
And then I think my life to a degree. I think like say people, well, you're from French Lick and home of Larry Bird, but yeah, it's all true. But that's there's more to it than that. Just like your life. I mean, in other words, yes, you grew up in a family
Sure.
that had a history of obviously with the furniture and
Right.
all that, and obviously that wasn't your love, but you've got into it differently. And I say, I think with the marketing aspect, I
Right.
mean, what better way to know the business?
Yeah, I think that I definitely enjoy marketing, and I definitely enjoy, like I said, telling stories, and I think it's just that really interested me, and not only that, I'm not one who likes repetitive things. I like to have a lot of different projects going on, and I think working in marketing allows me to practice different disciplines. There's everything like SEO and blogs and now podcasts and videos and there's just so many different things to grab my interest.
It has really surprised me a little bit, just I was doing the pre and post game show at the for the Kings still, that we have a lot of fans come around, and when we're done, I always visit with people. I really enjoy that, and how many have come up in the last few weeks saying, yeah, really. Watching the podcast, which I mean, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I mean, has been kind of a surprise. Oh, really? Which one? Oh, I've watched all of them, or I've watched 5, or these 3,
Sure.
or 2. So it's kind of a neat little segue kind of thing.
Yeah, that is cool. So you mentioned Larry Bird. Have you talked to Larry lately?
I have. It's been about a week ago. We kind of commiserate. I on the Kings, he on the Pacers, because
Right.
he's still a consultant, special consultant to the owner and president. Keeping had a legitimate role. So we talk about that, and the league in general, and sometimes just French Lick in general.
Right.
Who,
The good old days. Back home.
and friends that maybe have passed away,
Sure.
or aren't doing well, or doing real well. So
Right.
just like anybody, I always say that's probably the difference. Whatever relationship I have with Larry is more, we've kind of rode down the same road.
Right.
I haven't walked a mile in his shoes, but I know exactly the road they were on.
He was on,
and vice versa.
Has he seen the podcast yet?
I don't know.
You don't know? Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I really haven't asked him, and I'm afraid what he'd say. He'd say, "The Lord knows." but I'm going to make a point to ask.
There you
him.
go.
Yeah. So we keep in some touch. And I mean, like I say, it's just one of those things. Yeah, you go back. Of course, I always remember Larry as a little bitty guy, and and so you and he remembers me. I think I was the first college coach that he tried to recruit him, so he's mentioned that. So you come at things from a lot different
Sure.
perspective sometimes.
Yeah.
In other words, there's no way I thought he's going to be an all-time great or anything like that. I first time I saw him in high school as a junior, I knew he's going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody takes their past,
Sure.
and makes the choices they make, and obviously his skills and work ethic took on different levels.
Paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but I think that applies to probably a lot of people. I mean,
Sure.
there's an awful lot of young people at 17, 18 years old, and they, start making some decisions, hopefully more of them right.
Right.
Heading them in the right direction
Sure,
and
sure.
becoming dedicated to whatever field they have an interest
Right.
in.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I would, certainly appears that that's what's happened with you, and obviously now being in charge of this mass undertaking.
Don't tell everyone that.
So if you like the show, him. If you don't like the show, him.
Yeah, being an owner, there definitely comes more responsibility. And, a few years ago, I was serving as that agency role for McCreery's, and I was doing my own projects with my own company, on the side. I wasn't sure exactly how everything would happen. Family dynamics can be interesting, and my dad had to make a decision as to who would sit in the driver's seat of the company.
Sure.
And I have an older brother, and he moved up to Idaho, and he's, more or less, I don't think he's interested in the furniture industry. And, my dad had to kind of make that decision. And it's not easy, especially, family dynamics. And
Sure.
you had family dynamics, and you had a business in the middle of it, and makes it real interesting.
Yeah,
right?
but he's got to make the right decision.
Yeah.
I mean, for the business. And
Yeah, and I think that, thankfully, my brother and I, we have a good relationship now, and we've come to a mutual understanding, and I think that the future looks bright. And so, about 2 years ago, my dad asked me to step into this role, and, I'm trying to. My dad's, although he's not fully retired, he's semi-retired, and those are big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
It comes with a lot of experience.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously very successful, and so
Yeah.
you not only are following that, but you're expected to take it forward.
Right.
And I'm sure that had to be a few sleepless nights in there somewhere when the whole thing
There,
kinda turned, didn't it?
There's always sleepless nights. I think that it's namely, especially with a 2.5-year-old when he gets sick.
Yeah.
Those are sleepless nights. And soon a baby on the way. That's going to be more sleepless.
Now, really, and too, I mean, when you're in a leadership position, and I know just from my experience, whether it's general manager, head coach, I mean, those things become 24/7 jobs, and I don't want one of those again. By the way, been there, done that. But I mean, it's always a huge step when all of a sudden you don't have a niche, you have the whole package.
Yeah. There definitely has been more responsibility, more time required. Staff meetings. Getting everyone on board with this new, digital spectrum we're all playing in now. Everything is going digital, and just kind of rallying the troops and getting them pumped up to be in front of the camera. And I think I'm slowly moving the needle. I got a few of them, our designers interested in spending some time in front of the camera.
We did a little spot with one of your
Melissa,
Melissa, very talented designer.
Yeah,
and
she's great. Yeah,
and I think that's just something that probably kind of a skill set that has to be there.
Going
forward.
I think so, and not everyone likes to look at themselves in front of the camera, and it's kind of new territory for a lot of people. But I think that
that is a good
there.
point. Nobody really does. And I noticed myself. I was like, my God, I look old. Oh, so depressing. I mean, but then again, hey, I mean, everybody can't look like a movie star, and
not everyone can look like Brad Pitt like you, Jerry.
Yeah, Brett, yeah. I got a better chance of looking like an old version of Joe Rogan than I do Brad Pitt. But and Brad's getting old too now. Brad, hey, it's starting to slide away. You don't get to be young forever.
Time is a fickle thing.
Yeah,
I look at myself in the morning. I'm just like, oh, man, I remember back when I was 25.
Well, yeah, I've always said that thing I've noticed about being old, which I am, and it doesn't bother me really at all anymore because that's the way it works. But as you do age, and I think as young people don't really understand this yet, you'll still, as you get to be 60 or 70, you'll still see the world through the same eyes.
Yeah.
The world doesn't see you the same way.
Sure.
When I look at the world, I'm looking at it like I still think I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know, when I know the world looks at me and they're saying, "Look at that old fart."
Maybe about 25?
Yeah.
Do you see the world as like a 25?
Yeah, I mean, it's just as, yeah.
Because, you know, what's interesting, I came across a study, and this was quite a while ago, but something about that number 25 is when your brain is fully matured. And so we kind of see the world through the lens of, you know, how we did at 25. That's what I've heard. So.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably some truth in that.
Yeah.
You know, I really do. I mean, I've heard people say, "Well, I sure wish I was 25 again," or 20. Right. I don't. I mean, I think most people my age would say, "Boy, I'd love to be 50 again."
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but I have no desire to be 20, and all the pressures and the hard work and things that you went through at that age.
Yeah, that's definitely the building stage. That's the grinding stage, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously still going through it now. And quite honestly, you probably got 20 more years to go.
Most likely.
Isn't that encouraging thing?
Don't tell my wife.
But you've got 20 years of misery ahead.
Don't tell my wife.
But I also think, I mean, that's also the time where at that age, you've got the energy and the enthusiasm, part of God's plan, I guess, that to do what you have to do to get ahead and make your way. And then there's a point where, you know, like I say, my philosophy in life is start every day slow and then taper off.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much it now.
Yeah, yeah. You still taking those 3 naps a day?
I'll at least take one.
That Braddington Young recliner still treating you?
Oh, yeah. I definitely...
Braddington Young from McCreery's?
Sleep like a baby on it.
Throw a shameless plug in here.
and I curl up on it like a baby too. But I think I definitely do. And but now let me ask you kind of some final thoughts here. As far as the furniture business, now did you have a lot of knowledge about furniture per se? You know, or have you, as you've got more into it, have you had to study what lines make sense, what sell best, what last the best, all that type thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the products that we offer here are quite different from anywhere else in Sacramento. We are, I think it's safe to say, we're the last high-end furniture store in Sacramento, and a lot of people think, you know, by high-end, you know, McCreery's might be too expensive, but we do build out our products into specific categories, and you know, we like to call them good, better, best, where, you know, Flex Steel starts about $1,500 for a nice sofa. And, you know, we have other lines that, you know, as you move on up, depending upon your budget.
Well, yeah, what you're looking
for,
and what you really want, need, the whole thing.
Yeah. But to answer your question, yeah, I've had to learn quite a bit and still am learning quite a bit. And we have just a great staff that has so much knowledge on this product. And so I am always on the daily down there asking them questions, telling them to, you know, walk me through this product or the constructions or the material. It is definitely a learning experience. Never stop learning.
Well, don't you think that's kind of the key, is like say, well, okay, I don't know much about this, so I'll find someone who does.
Sure.
And that really are experts in that.
Yeah. We have a great staff down there, and they have just exemplary knowledge. And they need to have that because when it comes to, you know, with our furniture, it's very customizable. So a client can choose different fabrics. So upholstery, we sell a lot of upholstery. It's a very popular item. You know, they can choose their own fabrics. They can choose their own, you know, frame styles, even to their own, you know, arm on the sofas. Do they like traditional? We have products that fit that category. Do they like contemporary, where you got clean, straight lines? We offer those products as well. And it's a very personal experience where we have complimentary design services. So our interior design team works hand in hand with that client to really build something that's unique, that person can be really proud to put in their home.
I think a lot of people aren't totally aware of that side of it, are they? I mean, you know, they don't realize that all these things that are available to them.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I would imagine probably not. You know, I always make the joke that, you know, most of the furniture stores you go to in town, if you're looking for a sofa or upholstery, you walk into any of those places and they'll ask you probably 3 questions. Would you like that sofa in brown, or brown, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty much, you know, what you see is what you get. Whereas, like I mentioned, you know, it's a very custom experience here.
Well, I always say, that's one of those things where, you know, there's no surprised that you kind of get what you pay for.
Sure.
Same in all areas. If you want to pay very little for a house, well, yeah, you're going to get a very little house.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And if you want the cheapest sofa you can get, well, you're probably going to get a cheap sofa.
Sure,
And
yeah.
don't be surprised if it doesn't last a great deal of time. So I always say, I mean, we've learned the hard way, my wife and I, that this is sometimes you are forced to do these things,
Right.
because you don't have the option.
Sure.
But if you have the option, you
Yeah.
probably ought to go for quality.
Yeah, and I've been working very closely with one of our sales associates, and he very in detail broke out like why this product is this much, like cost per square inch. You use this type of wood in the frame. Like he builds it from the ground up, and it's absolutely fascinating, Jerry. Like it's mind blowing. He builds it from the ground up, saying these are the materials that goes into this frame. And the base is an 8-way hand tied, which is the traditional way and pretty much the timeless way for quality furniture to be constructed. Where these master craftsmen in North Carolina, it's a dying art, but there's maybe a dozen of these guys in North Carolina that do this. That they 8-way hand tie these springs, and it's amazing. And then to the part where it's like, how can you tell it's 8-way hand tied? Well, you put your hand underneath the body and you smack it underneath, and it makes a drum sound. Then you know that those strings have been tightened, and all the way to with leather, how much is this hide, and how is this hide processed, and what the difference between semi-aniline to full aniline to a painted hide, and all this process. I mean, there really is a story in every single piece of furniture, and I think when people hear the entire story, they're going to be fairly convinced that this is worth that price.
Well, I mean, people are used to, I think most people, especially men, are used to paying a lot more for, custom or really high-end automobiles.
Right. Sure.
They okay, this is what you got to pay to get
Right.
to get the best.
Yeah.
And then, but don't fully understand. Well, it's the same thought, with the quality, leather and everything that goes
Sure.
into a high-end automobile. You pay more for it because it costs more to make.
Right.
It's going to be worth more to you later.
Sure.
And last longer if that's what your desire is.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to learn about the furniture industry, and as I would go to markets, but more than the last 5 years, we're at the market every single year, and High Point, North Carolina is the place to go, and it's been that way for a long time. And just meeting with different vendors and seeing what's going on in the market, it's a different animal now, the industry, than it was when I was young.
Sure.
It's
You're still young. I mean, come on.
Well, when I was 18.
Real
or,
young,
yeah.
Well, like how we talked before, I mean, at High Point, I've been there, of course, for different reasons.
Sure.
High Point University.
Yeah.
At one time it was a small college, but all those areas. I could have learned something about furniture and missed my chance.
Well, Jerry, I think that your path that you took, at least from the stories I've heard, is pretty much priceless.
I wouldn't want to go through some of them again, but
Yeah.
it's
That's what builds character, right?
I guess,
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like I say, when you grow up with only electricity in 3 rooms of a house, and no running water inside,
Yeah.
outside toilet, it creates character. But I don't want to do that again. Just like I say, I always say, growing up in Indiana was great, family was great, and all that, but the climate, no.
Yeah.
I don't need that anymore.
Definitely 4 seasons in Indiana.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
You had all 4, and none of them really good.
Yeah.
And out here, you probably only have 3 really.
Yeah.
And they're all very mild.
Yeah,
Summer, take that back. Summer can be really rough at times.
Indeed.
You have
Indeed.
2 or 3 weeks where it's just rough.
Yeah, you better hope that you got a good AC.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you're camping out at Walmart.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, I probably we've talked about some things that may have interested you, maybe not, but I think you'll live through it. And I really appreciate, Kris, you coming on and talking about your background a little bit and about this business and particularly about maybe why we have the Jerry Reynolds Show.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much. It's an honor to share the set with you, and it's been an honor to listen to all these amazing stories. I mean, this is I am. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't walk back here in the studio and just feel really proud of what we've created and all the, just all the amazing things and guests and stories that have been told. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun, and like I say, I'd like to say the stories will run out, but they won't.
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm 76 years of bull crap. So anyway, thanks for visiting with us and sharing our time, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future.